Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having us here. So I'm blown away. I can't believe this is already the end of 2 days of Minds and Machines. I mean, listening to those hackathon winners and what's happened, I think this industrial internet thing is starting to catch on. What do you guys think? I think it's going to be pretty good. OK, so listen, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm John Gordon. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for the Current team. We are one of the newest divisions within General Electric. And this is our very first Minds and Machines. I saw many of you are repeat ones. We're new, so I wanted to start off by getting to know all of you a little bit better before I talked about what we do. So in that nature, just by a show of hands, right, this is the interactive portion, how many of you in your business have any kind of an aviation engine in your business? Anyone? Show of hands if you have one in your business. Excellent, excellent. I see where those are. How many of you guys have a locomotive somewhere in your business? And raise your hand if that's your area of focus. All right, so I'm trying to see where the locomotive people are. Let's see if I can get a few more. How many of you are involved anywhere in your business with power generation, renewables, transmission, anywhere in what you do, you're involved in the power aspect? OK, all right, quite a few more hands. I'm seeing where this is going. Let me try one more. How many of you somewhere in your business have a building? Like, any kind of building, an office space, a warehouse, anybody? Anybody out there? Okay, this is great. This is where current comes into play, right? The industrial internet, what I think is almost the most ubiquitous edge device in the entire industrial internet, is the buildings and spaces that all of us work in and live in. And our goal within Current is to take those buildings and those spaces and convert them into intelligent environments, actually digitize those buildings and make them intelligent environments. We do that by taking, we take wireless sensors and we put them all throughout buildings to collect the data from the edge, and we put it into the cloud with Predix. Right, so have you seen all throughout this Minds and Machines, the linking of the physical and the digital, the edge to the cloud? We think about that in all the spaces that we have. Now, why would we go and do this? We've got all these great pieces of equipment. We've got aviation engines. We've got locomotives. We've got power. Why do we do this with buildings? Well, we think two things. One, just like we've talked about for Predix and the industrial internet, there's two major areas of focus. One is efficiency. How do we go and bring costs down of what we do? Today in buildings, if I just think about things like energy, over 30% of the energy that goes to our buildings in the United States is wasted. It's cooling things that don't need to be cooled. It's heating places that don't need to be heated. It's lighting things that don't need to be lit. 30%, that's an incredible amount. And that turns into about $53 billion a year of money that we're spending. All of us have it in our budgets, and we're spending it, and it's not advancing our businesses at all. So just like we've talked about APM and asset efficiency, the efficiency of our building is one important area. The second part is when we have these digitized, if we think about digital thread and the processes that our businesses run through, the digital thread of every one of our industries runs through the spaces we have, whether it's supply chains or warehouses or office space even. What's moving and how things are happening within buildings is critical for us. So by digitizing these, we get an opportunity. So think of it like you've been hearing all week, asset performance management to make buildings efficient, and digital thread to drive business outcomes. So that's where we're focused. Let me talk about the first one when we get into this energy efficiency area and how we drive assets. If you go outside, you can take a look at the energy management system we've just announced this week. It's the first solution out of Current that we've been bringing to market. And when we think about energy efficiency, we think not just about what happens at an individual building. It's not about solving it for one. It's about the fleets of buildings we have. I was just speaking with a bank who was out here earlier, and they have over 3,000 branches and office buildings. That's a lot to manage. And what we want you to be able to see is, at a glance, how can I tell what's happening across all of those spaces? We said 30% is the average amount of energy waste. Well, some places are wasting more, and some places are wasting less. It's really hard to figure out how that works. So what we've done is given you a way to see across your fleet, just like you think about fleets of engines and fleets of all kinds of other equipment, how do you think about fleets of buildings to make that more efficient? From there, we can drill into individual spaces. So here, for example, this is a live system we put in this week at this Pier 48 site. And so when you get out of here, you can go back over to the demo booth and actually get taken through how are we thinking through this whole space. So this is Pier 48. The energy that's being used, what's being used for the screens, for the lights, for everything out in the show floor, and how is it being used over in the tents. This morning we could have used more of it for heat in the one-on-one conference rooms if anyone was over there. So you're able to see what's happening and drill down from a fleet to a site to an asset, even to an individual sensor, and find out what's happening. But look, we're all overwhelmed with data. Knowing what's happening isn't enough. We need to know, how do we take action on that data to bring some of that $53 billion back into our pockets so we can advance our business? So I'm going to show you how this same system not only collects the data, but looks at short-term, medium-term, and long-term, getting that value back to you. So the first way we think about this in the short term is with controls. We look at controls, and we think about them almost like the universal remote to your buildings. Here you can see things like the rooftop units for AC, for lighting, for chillers we have. This is actually one of the other sites that we're running live on the GE campus. And if you have this as the universal remote of being able to think about what happens in your building, not just on one site, but how do you set the policies across that fleet, or in areas where there's similar zones, similar climates, similar energy costs. And we allow you to take all kinds of different strategies, such as driving better demand response or peak energy shaving, even things like occupancy-based management, and daylight harvesting. So lots of different strategies in place very, very quickly to start to return those dollars to you and help you drive business outcomes. So in the medium term, one way that we also have to look at this is actually figuring out how we pay for and spend on energy is really complicated. There's different tariff structures that we have all across different regions. Sometimes they change annually, some change quarterly. It can get very complicated to optimize what structure you're signed up for. I know for myself, as many of you, you've probably just signed up for your annual healthcare plans, right? You have so many decisions to make, and you only have to do it once a year. Imagine if basically you're doing that on a quarterly basis for every site that you have around the globe, right? That's a really difficult thing. So by driving this, again, it's just making smarter decisions. It puts money back in your pocket to drive outcomes. And then third, we look at these intelligent buildings as an asset, as the efficiency, to say, how do we optimize not just the energy they use, but things like maintenance, and making sure that you manage different types of assets the right way moving forward. So you may not just maintain everything the same, whether it's old equipment or new equipment, but you come at different times. Hopefully what you see here, and as you dive in further to get more information here, this is a complicated opportunity, but this is money for you to find and put back to move your business forward, and it's right there when you can think about it as a fleet. So that's the asset side. Let's move over to the digital thread side. When we think about the processes that happen in these intelligent buildings, the same types of sensors, the same wireless network from the edge that collects data can be used to help drive productivity, whether it's finding out how forklifts are moving or how people are moving or conference room availability. There's lots of different ways to put it together. And we know in GE, we're not experts in every industry. So we have opened up an incredible partner program here. And just within Kern, we've grown that to over nearly 60 partners already this year who build solutions connecting to that digital engine for intelligent environments and use the data to drive outcomes. I'll give you a few examples of how those come together. If we move forward and you think about a digital space here, there's three things you would know. You would know what's happening in space utilization, you'd know what things are moving in it, what kind of assets, and what's the condition of the environment. That's the general type of information we collect, and it applies to just about every industry. Once we know that information, we think about the partners who are leveraging it, there are outcomes we can help drive. How do we increase the productivity of what happens in that space by helping people move better? How do we optimize what's available or reduce the energy usage so that we can bring those dollars back? So those are types of outcomes. They apply in just about every industry. I'll give you a couple quick examples of those. Even in an area you wouldn't think about like industrial, like retail, things like digital greeting, shopper assistance, et cetera, help make that space work better. In all of our office buildings, conference room management, HVAC demand forecasting, peak space utilization, all of these are things that we do, and we use the exact same edge device and sensors that we talked about to drive energy efficiency. So it's a really, really powerful opportunity. We will continue to grow that so that we expect every building on the planet to be thinking about, how do I become intelligent? How do I manage my fleets in an intelligent way? And use that to move forward. So very excited to be here. We're thrilled to be part of our first Minds and Machines. Look forward to coming back. I'd encourage all of you to come out to the booth, get a sense of where this is, and get your buildings audited, because there's money that's on the table for you to come back, and you can pour that into the business outcomes you're trying to drive. Thank you very much.